Also, she's a snarky, annoying, witty queen. We love her. She's one of my favorite main characters. I don't even want to say I read the book because I skipped so much of the book because so much of it was spicy scenes. Hello my lovelies, welcome back. My name is Viry for those of you who are new here. Let's get a few things out of the way. My hand is still healing. It's peeling now, so don't mind whatever's happening here. If you didn't see my previous video, I basically explained that I accidentally poured boiling water on my hand and it is still healing. So that's what's going on here. I'm good, I'm fine, we've moved on. Great. Now let's talk about the video for today, which as you all saw is my monthly reading wrap. We will be going over all of the books that I read for March. I am going to go back to doing them on a monthly basis because doing it for 3 months was rough. No, I did it for 2 months and that was very rough. Yeah, in conclusion, it's our monthly reading wrap. Grab a drink, get cozy, and let's get talking about books. Choice of drink for today, I am trying the Hawaiian shaved ice, not sponsored. This is going to act as my pre-workout of later today as well. And we're gonna use a straw because I'm fancy like that, I guess. Hold on, I hate the sound it makes when it scrapes against the metal. Oh, okay. I figured it was going to taste like coconut because there's coconut on here. This one very much has that artificial flavoring, like it's very hard to ignore. Anyway, let's talk about my books. So for the month of March, I read a total of 7 books. All of them were in physical format, and we're going to assume that I had audiobook help for all of them because I can't remember which ones I did listen to on audiobook and which ones I didn't. When I do listen to it on audiobook, it's not the full book, it's just parts of it when I'm on walks or getting ready for work or cooking or stuff like that. Now, you may ask yourself,
Viry, where are these books?
I was too lazy to bring them out and then put them away because I'm trying really hard to keep my shelves organized and I still have to actually rearrange and organize them. So we're going to just put an image of the book instead. Now let's start off with the first book, and that is The Prisoner's Throne by Holly Black. This is the second and final book to the duology The Stolen Heir. This is a young adult fantasy book. And then for Spice, while it's young adult, I think it's very much age appropriate, but there were some mentions of things happening. It was a 0.5 out of 5 for me for Spice, but it's not explicit at all. It's a fade to black. So since this is the second book to the Stolen Heir, I don't really want to give a summary because it could spoil things. So we're just going to say that this whole book is told in Oak's perspective rather than Ren's perspective. Oak is just trying to make amends. So since this is the final book to the duology and this is a spin-off series to The Cruel Prince, I'm just going to rate the duology as a 3.5 out of 5. I really liked it, but it's extremely hard not to compare it to The Cruel Prince, mostly because there's so many mentions of these characters from The Cruel Prince in the second book especially. Obviously, it's a completely different story. However, Holly Black's writing still delivers and I still very much enjoyed it. One of the things I really enjoyed was the dual POV. The first book is all about Ren. The Prisoner's Throne is all in Oak's point of view. So I really liked being able to see into both of their minds. I think it was very interesting to take that approach because you're following 2 different main characters at that point. Because of this, I also felt like we were able to approach the characters in a different way. So one of our main characters, Ren, we saw her go from this scared, almost animalistic creature into this very strong queen, and you see that progression go from book 1 all the way to book 2. And then with Oak as a character, because we get to follow him along through Prisoner's Throne, we really get to see his internal battles of trying to be more than just a golden boy, more than just the heir, the prince to the throne. It's very interesting because I had mentioned a comment of how it's hard to separate Oak from the overall Cruel Prince story, and that's exactly how Oak feels in the book because he is just trying to prove his worth and trying to not diminish the sacrifices that his family made. So with that, Oak really does become his own character. He really ends up standing for himself. I'm gonna put my hair down because my clip is starting to hurt my head. I did not know my head was sensitive today. Ha! As for other characters that I really enjoyed seeing, Hyacinth and Tyrion, right? That was his name, Tiernan. There's a sister and then there's Tiernan. That was really hard for me to kind of like wrap my head around. But yeah, Hyacinth and Tiernan, I love them. I love them. They were a very interesting story to follow. I would not mind reading a little novella between their love story. It is very interesting. For this book, the plot felt a little bit recycled from The Cruel Prince. There's nothing bad about it. I still enjoyed very much reading it, but I did like the approach of the first story where it felt more like a quest. It just felt more adventurous and it felt more unique. I definitely do feel like this book is a lot more character driven, and I think I said it was a fantasy, but this one leans a little bit more towards romantasy because it is more character driven, because it is focused more on the romance. And of course, I'm going to give it bonus points to see the original characters from the first series, especially the Jude and Carden cameos. I love seeing Carden. Is there like the sun's moving and there's a car parked right here and the reflections like hitting my face. So final thoughts. I definitely still enjoyed my time reading this book. I was very satisfied with the series. I will still prefer The Cruel Prince over The Stolen Heir, but Oak and Ren still definitely made their mark in elf fame. Okay, we're going to scooch over there because this is really blinding me. It's hurting my eyes. New spot. I think that should be fine. Also, I'm not sure if I mentioned the rating for the previous book. The Stolen Heir was definitely a 4 out of 5. Also, I quickly wanted to mention one last thing, which is a quote that I very much enjoyed from this book. So I'm going to read it. I wrote it down on my iPad, and this is Oak talking to Ren. It says, "I adore you. I want to play games with you. I want to tell you all the truths I had to give, and if you really think you're a monster, then let's be monsters together." So cute. Now the next book that I picked up was Fragile Sanctuary by Catherine Cowles. This was a 4 out of 5 for me with a spice rating of a 2.5 out of 5. Spice being a little bit above the usual contemporary romance average. A little bit of an emphasis on sexual chemistry. Definitely built up tension and explicit scenes. Now this is a romance book. This is more of a gritty romance book. It has small town elements with a mystery to go along with it. Because it does have a bit of a twist to it, I don't want to go too much into detail about what this book is about, so I'm going to keep the summary pretty short. So this story follows Rode, who suffered a tragedy when she was a child and was left basically an orphan, who was then adopted by her best friend's mother and grew up in a mixed family. She has multiple foster siblings, and she grew up with the idea of life being precious and trying to enjoy it the best she can because of all of her traumatic experiences. Our story starts off with Rode going back to her family home because she's trying to reconstruct it after the fire that killed her family, and there she meets Anson, a grumpy contractor who has a little bit more that meets the eye. Anson himself has also gone through some very traumatic experiences, and he's just trying to live his life in solitude when he meets Rode and basically shows him how to live again. Okay, so if you're into suspense romances or even a little bit curious about them, don't let the cover fool you. I know it's pink, I know it's cutesy, I know it's adorable, but there's definitely more than just a cute little romance happening here. This has grumpy sunshine trope, this has small town, this has found family, but with a twist. It is definitely a lot grittier and a little bit more intense because of this mystery aspect that it has going on. Since the stakes were so much higher, it definitely keeps you engaged for a lot longer because you're not only following the chemistry between the characters, but you're trying to figure out what's happening in this town. And of course, it's still a romance book, so you still get your happily ever after at the end. I don't know if it's the approach to the book, but the characters definitely had a lot more depth than I expected. So Rhodes, I feel like, was a really good example of someone trying to work through their trauma and grief. She was a very self-aware person. Now Anson, our main male character, is the complete opposite of Rhodes. He's suppressing all of his feelings, suppressing all of his trauma. He is trying to live in solitude. He is honestly not even living, just surviving. So it was very interesting to have such contrasting characters who both went through equally traumatic experiences, completely different from each other, but still left a heavy mark in their life, and how they dealt with it is completely different. I feel like this definitely added depth to the characters while still developing them both individually. And obviously, I feel like a lot of the character growth that you do see does come from Anson because he is getting out of his shell. He is learning how to live again because of Rhodes. And of course, you still see Rhodes trying to face that fear that she has surrounding her home and stuff like that. And the side characters were also all very interesting because they were all adopted as well. They all had a little bit of a mysterious background that we don't go into full detail, but they definitely are more than just side characters and left me intrigued enough to want to pick up the rest of the series. The plot definitely leans more into a suspense/thriller romance, which elevates it from a contemporary romance, and it definitely worked for me. I was very much hooked from the beginning. And because you're distracted by the romance, that twist that happens in the book, you don't see coming as clearly. There were definitely hints throughout the story, but again, the romance is distracting you because that is, in a way, the main plot. So as for writing style, I feel like it was very simple and easy to follow. It wasn't overly elaborate, but it still left some memorable quotes. For example, this is Anson speaking to Rhodes. "You gave me air when I thought I'd never breathe again. You gave me color when my world had gone black. You see every part of me." See, it still has that simplicity, but the way these sentences are formulated make it special. This definitely leans into dialogue, and there's very solid banter between the characters. It might not be excessively descriptive, but it definitely does a solid job of building the tension in the plot and creating chemistry between our two characters. Overall, I really enjoyed this book. I feel like it was a very good experience. I was satisfied. I was still very giddy at the end, and it had its moments where it had me giggling and laughing. 4 out of 5. Good book. I would definitely recommend this book. Camera is overheating and dying, so I'll be right back. The next book I have on my list is Bonds of Hercules by Jasmine Mas, and this was a 4 out of 5. As for spice, it was a 3 out of 5. It was a little bit more spice driven, definitely more emphasis on explicit scenes, a lot of built up tension throughout the book. So as we all know, I absolutely adored book 1, which was Blood of Hercules. This is book 2. I will not give a summary about what this book is about because I can't really explain what happened in the second book without spoiling something that happens in the first book. So let's just say Alexis is starting to stand up as a character, and we get to wrap up her story, at least in this book. So, as I mentioned, this is a little bit more spice driven, so get ready for some steamy scenes. There are more battle scenes on here as well, and of course, the return of our very snarky character, Alexis. I might not have liked it as much as the first book, but I still enjoyed my time reading this book immensely. It was a lot of chaotic and fun vibes with very sweet moments. Overall, just a good time. So, characters. Starting off with Alexis. She is rightfully so pissed off. She is making the men grovel, and I think that is very, very fun to see. I very much like seeing her stand up for herself a lot more in this book, and I feel like she took everything she went through in book 1 and said,
"I can do better, just watch."
And definitely grew as a character, as someone more confident and not afraid to assert themselves in a situation. I feel like she definitely learned to embrace who she is while still being soft and vulnerable with the people she cares about. Also, she's a snarky, annoying, witty queen. We love her. She's one of my favorite main characters. I know not everyone likes her, but I really like her. So Augustus and Karen definitely give good cop versus bad cop, but make it spicy, you know, at the handcuffs. Oh my god, what am I saying? Hi. I really like getting more of their backgrounds. I feel like it really helped the characters grow and explain why they are the way they are, not just these random male main characters that live for the main character. I think what I really liked the most was their individual relationships with Alexis, and then obviously their relationship together, all 3 of them. I think that was very cute. Like, their dynamic together was really good. Even though I said Alexis is my favorite, I think Karen is also my favorite. Oh, I love Karen. I I live for Karen moments. Oh my god. The banter between Alexis and Karen was perfection. I enjoyed every second of their conversations. It was so good. I just wanted them on scene together all the time. I really liked their dynamic and their chemistry. I feel like the tension between them was so good. You know what? Karen just by himself, we love. And I'm not saying anything because it's not confirmed, but I'm sensing a third book. I feel like it's going to be something like the Shifterverse. Is that what the series is called? The Psycho Shifters series, where the first 3 books follow one group and then the other books follow another group, but they're all still interconnected because there's still like a major plot that's overarching and needs to be solved and stuff like that. So I think that's happening here because while book 1 and 2 wrapped up Alexis's story, there's still loose ends that you could see will get tied up maybe in the future with a spin-off or just a second installation for a different couple to follow. I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. So the plot and pacing were very solid. I feel like it was still very fast-paced. It still was engaging. We focus mostly on relationships here. We focus more on the chemistry and the romance built up. I feel like if anything, the plot outside of the romance was a little bit repetitive from the first book. It felt similar to the Crucibles, but in this case, it was... What were they called? Hold on. Did I write it down? I didn't write it down. Anyway, that part of the book did feel a little bit repetitive, and it's probably why I gave it a lower rating because it did feel like a regurgitation of the Crucibles. And I definitely feel like it focused more on relationship because Augustus and Karen were trying to prove their worth, prove themselves, and prove their affection to Alexis. So it took very much a big space of the book. So for writing style, one thing I did notice, and I mentioned it in the first book, and it was that there was some very incoherent scenes, and I thought that was due to the nature of Alexis and what she was going through. But personally, I'm starting to see that this is just the author's writing style, and it could be a little bit hard to follow now and then because these scenes are so chaotic sometimes that they feel like a fever dream, and that can lose people. So the writing style definitely still falls more into inner monologue. We are constantly in these characters' heads. We do also lean into dialogue, but inner monologue is definitely the key focus here. And there are very sarcastic tones throughout the whole book. So quick moments for quotes. This is possibly one of my favorite scenes of the whole book. And this is why I had to grab a quote because this quote made it a lot better, but just the overall scene. The scene was perfection. It's the ear. If you know, you know. So this is Karen speaking to Alexis. Actually, now that I think about it, I don't think this is the scene specifically about the ear, but at least the aftermath. Karen says, "I'm yours," I said as the rain roared around us. "You can break my legs, but I'll still crawl after you. If you're injured, I will carve myself to pieces to make you whole every single time. This is not a temporary arrangement. We will be together forever or I'll be dead." I love Karen. The ear. That was so gross, but so cute. So final thoughts. I still very much had such a fun time reading this book. I still very much enjoyed this duology. I don't know if it's going to stay a duology. I don't know if it's going to continue a series, but at least for now, because it's the first 2 books and it sounds like it's done, we're going to rate it as a whole. This is a 4.5. 5 for the first one, 4 for the second one. So we have to say a 4.5. It wasn't like a 5 out of 5, but I still very much liked it. Very, very fun to read. Fun time, good vibes. Now the book I picked up after that is once again a second book, which again, we're not going to talk too much about the summary because this will spoil major stuff that happens in the first book. But that is The Dragon Republic by R.F. Kuang. This was a story that broke me. This was a story that had me just staring at the ceiling and not knowing what to do with my life for a good few minutes to an hour because I finished it at night and I'm just like,
oh my god, what do I do now?
This was a 5 out of 5 for me. Yeah, this is what I thought the Poppy War was going to be, but make it the second book instead because this one really, ouchie, this one hurt. I think the only thing I can summarize about this without actually revealing what happened in the first book, Rin has new enemies and now she has to deal with the Hesperian and trying to figure out where she fits in all of what's happening in Nikan. I can't even talk about the quotes that I wrote down for this because a lot of them were very shocking and a lot of them just would spoil things. So we're going to try to keep this as concise as possible. Overall, this book was wow, right? Wow, like I can't emphasize how much this book destroyed me. So far, I have not read the third book. This has been my favorite in the trilogy. Oh, I don't even know how to talk about it. Okay, hold on. Let me recenter myself. So writing, at this point, she's one of my top authors. I'm just very much blown away by this author. I love her writing and I didn't realize it until reading this book, how much I trust this author telling a story that I'm going to be fully engaged. She has my full trust right now. From the start, I'm like pulled right into this world again. I am fully immersed. And I think one of my favorite things about the Dragon Republic is, if you know me, I love world building and this really focused on world building. We expanded on the world that Rin got to see. Okay, hold on. You know what? Reset. Timeout. My camera's gonna shut off any second now because it's overheating. Let me recenter myself, figure out how I'm going to talk about this book, and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back and we're going to do this fast because apparently my camera's halfway through this live. We need a new camera, guys. We just need a new camera. What I was trying to say earlier is that the world building feels so real with these little details because just the attention to detail when it comes to the different microclimates in the different areas that Rin travels to makes the world feel more alive. And even though the world is very much fictional, it has very real political issues and social issues, which makes it all feel a lot more realistic as well. The characters definitely broke my heart. I feel so attached to these characters that the moments of betrayal and overall the emotional moments hit so much harder. Focusing on Rin specifically, since she is the main character, I already felt like her character arc in the first book was very impressive, but in book 2, we're definitely fighting with moral values and guilt and trying to learn who she is outside of just basically a weapon. Rin definitely grew even more as a character and I'm kind of scared to see what's going to happen in the last book to Rin. Now, the only thing I'm going to say about side characters is if anything happens to Katai, I will riot. Just letting y'all know. I'm gonna be very mad. The overall story, the overall plot continues to build on larger conflicts. Obviously, we went through everything we went in book 1 and you feel like, yay, we're done, victory, blah, blah, blah. But in reality, you actually have to deal with the aftermath of everything that happened, and that's what book 2 is about. And then of course we have the introduction of new groups within new regions, which builds even more tension and more weird power dynamics. Final thoughts, I completely enjoyed this book. I really had already enjoyed book 1. And this book just took it one step further and so far has been my favorite. I am very excited to read the next book, but with that said, this still comes with a heavy content warning. There is a lot of triggering topics that we discuss. Even though it was very interesting, it was a hard emotional pill to swallow. It was very hard to read and I had to take my breaks. And because of that, even though I'm excited to see what the third book is about, I don't think I am emotionally prepared to get into the final book. But good book. 5 out of 5 for me. I'm so impressed by this book. Ooh, it's getting warm. Okay, taking off the sweater. After such a heavy read, I needed something cutesy. I needed something that would lift my spirits, and I picked up And Now Back to You by B.K. Borison. This was a 3.5 out of 5 for me, and for spice, I gave it a 2.5. More emphasis on spicy scenes, on sexual chemistry. So a quick summary. This story follows Delilah, who is a meteorologist in the city of Baltimore, and she is the well-loved, quirky, cute, friendly meteorologist that everyone knows, and she's just this spark of joy. But honestly, even though Delilah loves to unapologetically be herself, she also wants to be taken seriously. And then of course we have her complete opposite, Jackson, who is very routine-based, is a very anxious person. Yeah, that's Jackson. That's Jackson. Jackson sounds like me. Jackson ends up leaving passive-aggressive notes on Delilah's car, and they start to build this kind of like back and forth relationship between them, when eventually where our story picks up is that they have to work together to report on a big winter storm that's going to hit their city. This is Delilah's chance to be taken seriously. Jackson is also taking this opportunity to learn from Delilah to be a little bit more carefree. We all know this, and I'm going to continue saying this every time this comes up. I'm a sucker for Grumpy Sunshine tropes. What can I say? Give me Grumpy Sunshine and I'm automatically sucked in. So if you're into sweet, classic rom-com books with a little bit of spice in it, then this is a book you definitely should read. I very much like this author, but I will say this is not my favorite from this author. I do feel like she has, from the other books I've read, better books. That does not mean it's not good, however. So I feel like one of the things that the author does very well is characters. Every book I read from this author is her characters are very strong, in my personal opinion. Delilah, like I mentioned, is this quirky girl, right? But she does not want to be the manic pixie dream girl. She wants to be unapologetically herself, but she also wants to be taken seriously because she loves what she does. She is a meteorologist and she wants to report on the weather. Her boss doesn't take her seriously. She's okay with making people happy, but she also just wants to prove that she's more than just that. We do get some insight as to why she uses her personality as a shield, but I will say, considering how much we push this idea of her not wanting to be the manic pixie dream girl, I think in the moments of seriousness we could have lingered a little bit more just so it could be better absorbed, if that makes any sense. But I think other than that, Delilah was still a very fun character to read about. Now Jackson is the one that takes the cake. Jackson, I feel like, is that complex character because yes, we have a very like routine oriented person that can't be spontaneous, that doesn't take a moment to be happy and like carefree, and there's a reason behind that, and we go so much more into depth for Jackson's character. That just makes it a lot more interesting because we do get to understand why he is the way he is, why he grew up being the way he is. Jackson definitely is the one that has a lot more depth. And I think those moments that we took with Jackson, understanding his background, I feel like that would have worked so well with Delilah as well, but we just didn't get that for Delilah. I also think that I just relate to Jackson a lot, if I'm being honest. That just might be the situation that Jackson is the male version of me sometimes. The writing sold me on the chemistry. I think it was so cute. I found the romance between them adorable. We do have a dual point of view, so we get to see into both of their minds, which allows us to understand how they feel for each other and doesn't just let us assume like,
oh, Jackson feels this way because that's how Delilah sees him or something like that.
I feel like the banter between them was really good and it helped build the tension that they had. I also felt like because there was so much banter and they got to know each other so much, the relationship wasn't purely physical. Like we actually got to emotionally connect with each other, and that helped build that chemistry. So I will say that this book was supposed to be inspired by When Harry Met Sally, but personally I did not see that inspiration, which could be a good thing or a bad thing depending on you. And I think another thing that I appreciate about this book is that, oh my god, my voice. If there was a slightly bit of miscommunication, Jackson always wanted to talk about it, and you guys know how I feel about miscommunication. I don't like it. So the fact that Jackson was really trying to express how he felt, even if it wasn't coming across the correct way, he was always trying to like figure out how to express himself, because obviously that was one of the main issues why they couldn't be together, was just Delilah was insecure. Like honestly, that's what it came down to. I felt like there wasn't very much of a strong reason why they shouldn't be together, and that's probably what took away from the enjoyment. Overall, sweet book. I had my fun with it. I still think it's cute. I will still keep reading things from this author, and I enjoyed my time. Okay, I have 2 more books to review. I'm going to change my camera battery one more time because I guess it's dying again. It's overheating again. We'll be right back. I think I'm officially going to save up for a new camera because this is getting annoying. Okay, and so the next book that I picked up after that was a change in genres. So I picked up the second book to Dungeon Crawler Carl, which is Carl's Doomsday Scenario by Matt Dinniman. This was a 4 out of 5 for me. Now a quick summary, because honestly I'm just here for the ride. Even I don't know what's going on half the time. Basically, Carl and Princess Donut have made it to the 3rd level, right there? Yeah, have made it to the 3rd floor in the dungeon, and they're trying to survive. They're just trying to survive. They've chosen their new forms, and they're grinding their way to the next level. My thoughts with this book, something I really want to mention is I cannot help myself but imagine, oh my god, what's his name? Jensen Ackles, right? Yeah. Jensen Ackles, specifically Dean from Supernatural, playing Carl, running around in underwear with a cat who wears a tiara. A fluffy cat that wears a tiara. Not a bad sight if I'm being honest. Like I said, I honestly have no idea what's happening half the time. There's a lot of world building happening and there's a lot to keep track of, and there's so many different characters and NPCs, I think that's what they are, and different crawlers. There's obviously some political issues happening outside of the dungeon that affect the dungeon, and you don't have the full story, so you're as clueless as Carl, and I think that's what makes it fun, that the main character doesn't know what's going on, so you don't know what's going on, and you're just going along with the ride just the way he is. It feels very immersive for that reason. I feel like the writing is super engaging. It's very comedic, and it just pulls you in really quickly and keeps things moving. Think about it as a RPG book. And then of course we have the AI, and the way the characters react is very comedic. Even though it's extremely high stakes. Carl could still die, or Princess Donut could still die. But I think the reactions and the AI make it so comedic that you forget how high stakes it is until we have moments of seriousness where we're just like, oof, and it sombers you up really fast. It's honestly kind of unhinged in the best ways, and I love it. I'm here for it. So for characters, of course, we have multiple characters. We have Mordecai, we have Carl, we have Princess Donut, and yeah, I think those are our main characters right now. Mordecai being more of a side character, Carl and Princess Donut being the main characters. And Carl and Princess Donut are so unconventional together, but they make such perfect sense. They balance each other out. I feel like I mentioned there are somber moments, so seeing Carl having to process those somber moments but then like move on is very interesting, because we don't get a lot of serious moments with these characters. So it adds to the depth of the characters. It makes them more three-dimensional rather than just like a comedic relief, and I think that really helps, honestly, break some of the tension, because if it's just comedy all the way through, I feel like it would get bored. So having those serious moments with Carl really helps. And then Princess Donut, oh my god, her growth. I do feel like the way that they described her, she is seen as a child almost who is like learning and growing, and it really reflects that. I feel like the growth from Princess Donut in the first book to the end of the second book, and seeing her thought process and seeing her like react and stuff, and then the way Carl acknowledged how maybe she's like hiding a lot of her intelligence because that's what like she was kind of groomed to be, because she is a show cat. Very, very interesting. I love Princess Donut. We're team Princess Donut here. For the pacing, I feel like it falls right in the middle. It's not too fast, it's not too slow, it's just like perfect medium pace. We get enough explanation of what's happening in the dungeon while still moving forward. We are focusing on level per level at the moment, which is a good thing in my opinion, because you can explore the world a little bit more that way, and we have more time to digest what's happening. So overall, this book was fun, comedic, had high stakes and sombering moments that helped balance it out. It was a good time. I'm here for a good time, not a long time kind of vibe. Okie doke. Now the final book of the month that I read, it was Heated Rivalry by Rachel Reed. This was a 3 out of 5, and as for spice, it was quite a spicy book, to the point where I'm in between a 4.5 to a 5. Deadass, this was a smutty book. This was starting to lean more into erotica rather than a book with spice. Almost all spice, no plot. So a quick summary for those of you who don't know, because I live under a rock, so I had no clue what this book was actually about. But this story follows Shane Holland and Ilya Rosanov, who are rivals. They are pitted against each other. They are these new rookies in the hockey team, and from the very start when they got drafted, all of the buzz surrounding them was putting them against each other, and they started to develop this rivalry between them throughout the span of 6 years. However, there is definitely some sexual tension between Shane and Ilya, and yeah, it just follows Shane and Ilya having a secret relationship, purely physical, for 6 years, and it kind of jumps back and forth between time, where we start off present, then go to the past and then go back to the present. With that said, don't be like me. I already said this was spicy. This was very, very spicy. I was expecting spice, but I wasn't expecting the amount of spice that this book was. This was literally a spicy scene every chapter, almost every chapter, that lasted a good amount of pages. The first 60% of the book felt like it was just smut for me, and I don't know necessarily if that's what I was looking for, if I'm being honest. That really like hindered my experience, because outside of sexual tension, there wasn't anything that kept me engaged. I wanted to see a romance between them. We focused so much on the smut that we didn't really see that much of the romance. So for the writing, it was very easy to read, but I honestly can't talk too much about the writing because a few chapters in, I was kind of just tired of reading all of the spice without any emotional attachment to these characters, that I started skipping the spicy scenes until we got to like a good part of the book. I don't even want to say I read the book because I skipped so much of the book because so much of it was spicy scenes. So now, with that being said, the last 40% of the book had me giggling and kicking like a little girl. I'm just like, oh my god, that last 40% of the book was good. I really liked it, and I wonder if that was because the spice was kind of like taking a little bit of a backseat. Like, we still got a lot of it, but we were also focusing on so much of their actual relationship and the built-up chemistry between them, the built-up romantic chemistry between them, not just the sexual tension. And I think that really helped connect with the characters because we also got to know them better outside of just y'all are hot. That's why I have very mixed feelings about this book, because it was extremely spicy when I didn't want to read something super spicy. Like, sometimes, yeah, I'm in the mood for like a smutty book. Sometimes like an erotic book would be fun to read, but I have to actively be looking for those books. So when they take me by surprise like this, it really does just hinder my experience, like I mentioned. Now, as for characters, so we had Shane, who was the golden boy. And for Shane, we were focusing a lot on coming to terms with his sexuality. I think that was very interesting, following Shane and like seeing his realization and like coming out secretly and like accepting who he was and stuff like that. So we did get to see that part of Shane. And then we had Ilya, who was more, I want to say, bisexual. We didn't really like explicitly put a label on him, so you know what, let's remove that label. Ilya was Ilya. Personally, for me, Ilya was the one that carried the story. He was my favorite. Oh my god, I will say the banter between Shane and Ilya was elite. I loved it. I love Ilya. He's so funny too. But yeah, Ilya was definitely the more compelling story for me because he wasn't only, you know, his rival, he was dealing with political pressures because he is from Russia and he was a Russian living in the US playing in a hockey team, so he was getting a lot of hate. He was dealing with family expectations, and he was also having to deal with feelings that could potentially impact his career. But also, Ilya was just such a fun character because of his form of speaking and his chemistry with Shane and stuff like that. He was definitely the person that took some time to open up with people he was comfortable. And when he was vulnerable with those people, it was so sweet. Those moments were so sweet. Definitely had that bad boy energy. So the golden boy and the bad boy. So the story definitely touches on topics of being queer in a male-dominated space with a lot of underlying homophobic tones and just like straight up homophobia like in their face as well, right? I did appreciate the ending. I know a lot of people are not satisfied with the ending, and I think there is another book or two after this one, but it did feel realistic for me. And if the other books do expand on the ending, I think it's also would be very interesting to read about. However, I'm satisfied with the ending, and considering that I only enjoyed the last bit of the book, I don't feel the need to continue the series. I think for pacing, it was very fast-paced in the sense of we did a lot of time jumps. It did feel a little bit repetitive for me though, because we had that same meet together in secret, had some sexy time together, and then separate. So it was repetitive in that sense up until, again, that last like 40% of the book. My dog is coming. And I think because it was repetitive, that was also probably why I was skipping the spicy scenes, because you know the first 2-3 were like fine, but at some point I'm just like,
okay, this is enough for me. Let's get to the point. Where are we going?
Up. Oh, puppy boy. My pup has joined us. Now, final thoughts. I will say I was contemplating on giving the story a 2.5 out of 5 just because of my experience with the first bit of the book. But then I realized that my expectations were so high because people were recommending it, everyone was talking about it. I had to take a step back and kind of like analyze what I read and like digest, like, okay, did I enjoy myself? Did I enjoy this book? I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it enough where I liked my time reading it towards the end. I could have done without the spicy scenes, but I'm not upset about it. I just wouldn't recommend it unless you are actively looking for a smutty book. Again, the banter between Ilya and Shane was so good. The romance was cute. Like, I was here for it. I definitely was here for it. So I did end up giving it a 3 for that reason. And I'll be honest, I watched the show after because I heard that the show was so much better than the book, which is usually not the case. It's the other way around. And I have to agree, reading the book and watching the show was better. Honestly, it did such a good job of keeping to the material of the book, but I think the actors just very much delivered. There was so much chemistry between the actors, and yeah, made me love Ilya even more. That was the last book I read for March. Oh, we made it. Oh my god, every time I record these videos, I'm always just like, wow, we finished my reading wrap. It's energy drink. You don't like energy drink. But anyway, that's it. That was our reading wrap. Let me know down in the comments below, what was your favorite book for March? Mine was definitely hands down The Dragon Republic. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so already and you would like to, please subscribe. I usually make book content and now and then I make some lifestyle vlogs. But thank you all so much for watching. Have a beautiful day, a beautiful night, and happy reading. Bye!